Just this title alone here isn't reasonable. Yellow cabs wait near U.S.-Canada border to drive illegal immigrants to New York City. Yeah, you're sitting in a cab just waiting for some people that broke the law, committed felonies, hop in the cab. Yeah, we'll get you to New York City. Don't worry. That's what we're talking about. Let's get into it right now.
Under the cover of darkness, people emerging from a vehicle after it pulls up to a gas station in Plattsburg, a city in Clinton County, New York. It's located more than 300 miles from New York City and less than 30 miles from the Canadian border.
Hi, sir. Where are you coming from? I'm a journalist. Where are you coming from? You came from Canada?
My questions met with silence.
Tell us where you're coming from.
Reluctance.
Ma'am, where are you coming from? Can you tell me?
And refusal.
No.
No, you don't want to talk?
No.
They start walking away, and we follow them.
Sir, can we talk to you? Can you tell me where you're coming from? I'm a journalist. We're doing a story on people crossing the border.
We are coming from India.
Can you show me the documents?
No, ma'am.
The letterhead identifies the document at a glance. It's from the federal government, the kind of document given to asylum seekers
What did they say to you?
after crossing the border illegally.
At the border, what did they say?
Nothing.
You crossed the border, the Canadian border?
Yes.
How long did it take to walk across the border?
Ma'am, this is the main person is this.
Okay, one more question. Are you going to New York City?
Yeah.
And that's how we finally confirmed where at least one of them is going. The gas station is called Mountain Mart. It's also a bus stop here in upstate New York, and we've confirmed well known around here as a meeting place for migrants after crossing the northern border. About 20 miles from here and closer to Canada, the town of Champlain, where town supervisor Thomas Tremblay regularly deals with complaints from people about migrants on their property.
To me, it's like a back door.
A back door into the United States, he says. While our eyes look at the flow of people crossing the southern border, here locals will tell you an alternate route into the U.S. through Canada is becoming more popular for people who are desperate to get into the country.
We've seen 4, 6, or 8 individuals walking down one of our town roads or village streets.
It's a regular thing.
It's become a regular thing, yes.
I got them on my cameras all the time, going through the woods.
These images from Joe Ashland's deer camera.
They're not shy. They just walk down the street.
He says migrants end up around his home all the time.
You got to lock everything. Years ago, you never locked any doors around here, but now you do.
Have you ever had to place a call to Border Patrol?
Oh, plenty of times.
Stretching more than 5,500 miles long, the northern border is the longest land border in the world, more than twice as long as the southern border. Here, there are no walls, fences, or major barriers. There is a lot of open land.
Walking through grass and surrounded by tall trees, there are many places for migrants to hide. And that's how many of them are navigating the northern border undetected.
In a statement to Fox 5 News, a spokesperson for U.S. Customs and Border Protection said, "We have seen an increase by USBP in apprehensions of individuals unlawfully crossing the northern border."
So we've had all this pressure on the northern border recently because across the southern border, well, like Greg Abbott is stating, Operation Lone Star decreases illegal crossings into Texas by 85%. Greg Abbott is claiming that because of what he's done and shoring up the southern border, that crossings are way down. But I think what you've got is what Mexico is doing. Mexico has made it very difficult for people to just be doing their normal run up into the United States. They've been putting people further back in their journey. And as they get closer to the northern Mexico border and southern U.S. border, oftentimes they'll start them over. And I think so much of that has to do with politics, with Biden saying, "Hey, things aren't looking good. Can you help me out? Can you slow these numbers down?" Because the numbers were just a horrific look. As of, late last year, 2023, you had some astronomical numbers. And so people have recognized, okay, southern border is a no-go near Texas. So if you want to go through, California, I mean, everybody knows that that's kind of the move right now. But the northern border has been getting more and more activity. because it's wide open. It's just you got to go through Canada to get there. So you've got a wildly different set of circumstances on how you get into the U.S. I thought it was interesting. It was an Indian gentleman that was coming through the border from Canada. It's like, okay, yeah, we're planes, trains, and automobiles, right? They're just coming in from everywhere. We've made it known. Yeah, go ahead. Just come into the country however you like. And now, so they've got, this area, well, we'll read about it. At Mountain Mart, an outpost for migrants who illegally crossed the nearby Canadian border, Fox 5 New York spotted a New York City yellow taxi cab. Officials confirmed that taxi rideshares and private drivers profit off the 5-hour trek from this outpost. 30 miles from the border to New York City, over 300 miles away. Fox 5 New York also confirmed its medallion traces back to the Big Apple. Mountain Mart sits within Clinton County in the northeastern corner of New York, where reporter Stephanie Bertini and photojournalist Lenny Torres recently explored the factors and key players behind the surge in illegal crossings at the U.S.-Canada border. We've been so focused on that southern border because it's been just wildly open. Well, the northern border, it's much bigger. It's way bigger than the southern border. So there's more opportunity to cross through. But the whole getting through into Canada is way trickier than Mexico. So you just don't have the same numbers, right? But now we're starting to see some of those. And that's what we're talking about today, and how migrants end their long journeys in New York City. Well, we're aware of the yellow cabs. There's always money to be made, meaning there's some hired gun out there who says, yes, I'll take you in a cab, 5 hours. You betcha. You betcha. He said he's paid $130 to $150 per person. Oftentimes migrants cross the border in groups. Every driver, they park their car here. Everybody knows. Some people, they go by bus, he told Bertini. Mountain Mart, gas station in Plattsburg, is also a stop for charter buses like Trailways that offer direct trips to Port Authority bus terminal. Dirty shoes discarded after the 30-mile walk were seen nearby. So from the U.S.-Canada border, 30 miles down to where we're talking about. So they walk. They walk. I mean, these people have just gone all over, right? Because everybody wants into the U.S. No matter what people say, I'm going to leave. If Trump gets elected, I'm leaving. They never do, because they don't have anywhere else better to go. Yeah, they really don't. You don't have people trying to get into Venezuela, do you? No, not really. They're going the other way. This is a super one-sided conversation. Everybody wants into the U.S., and we know it. And so they're willing to commit crimes in order to get here. Before boarding a New York City-bound Trailways bus, a mother with her children spoke with Bertini. She said in Spanish that she traveled from Venezuela and was in search of a better life. And I don't have an issue with that. But until they're vetted and until they've been through the court process, most of these folks, we don't even know if they will qualify for asylum. I mean, vast majority do not. They simply do not. But then they're rattling around the United States, oftentimes with a work permit, even though they're not going to have long-term stability here in the U.S. as a citizen. So they just kind of hang out in the U.S. Maybe they'll get deported. Maybe they won't, because it doesn't seem like we're really deporting many people these days. Major Nicholas Leon, a chief deputy with the Clinton County Sheriff's Office, said he was not surprised to learn that a New York City cab was parked near the bus station. That's a long drive, right? That cabbie's got to get all the way there, and then he drives them back. We're well aware of the yellow cabs. We're aware that there is a border operation to pick people up, he said. There's always money to be made. Why Clinton County? Why this particular area? And that was kind of one of my thoughts as well. Within this 1,000 square mile expanse, there's no walls, fences, or major barriers near the divide between what is Canadian and what is American. Anyone willing to cross illegally can easily hide between trees and tall grasses, navigating the border undetected. It's a back door to the United States, according to Thomas Trombley, the town supervisor of Champlain, located 2 miles from the border. And I've always thought that with Blaine here in Western Washington, that's the border town that sits on Canadian border and the U.S. border. I mean, what would prevent you from running across some private farmland And then just, here I am. Nothing. I mean, yeah, you might, border patrol, but they're not out there. They can't patrol this whole area, right? They just can't. It's too big of an area. Officials also confirmed that many migrants fly to metropolitan hubs like Montreal. I have heard that, Montreal being a big one. And smugglers organize a run to the border. From there, they walk over the rough terrain and into Clinton County, where residents describe near daily sightings. Very dangerous, a young migrant told Bertini after crossing the U.S.-Canadian border on foot. Okay, but is it, or is it just the unknown? Because the numbers are such where, that's a massive border. The United States border with Canada is a huge border. So you've got a lot of areas that are just super porous, just like the southern border used to be. But with Greg Abbott, he has put on a full-scale military operation in Operation Lone Star. And most importantly, back to the Canadian border, it's a part of the pipeline to New York City, a place that for many migrants holds the keys to achieving the American dream. They have long stretches of border that just don't have enough people to cover it. The numbers are surging because it's easy. And that's what I've kind of heard as well, is that you can get through because it's a numbers game. So why wouldn't you go there? So, the fact that these folks have some kind of documentation from our federal government, from the United States federal government, and all they have to do is basically get into the United States, and they'll eventually work their way to wherever they need to. Now, these folks they're here illegally. They've crossed illegally. They've crossed the Canadian-U.S. border illegally. And yet our government currently just says, oh yeah, come on, Ed, we'll help you out. And for folks trying to get to New York City just has, how about the debit cards they've been handing out? Oh yeah, it's a pilot program that's going to go on forever. New York City is just handing out money, resources, food, hand over fist. And so many of these illegals, they see New York City as really the optimal destination to get to. So going through Montreal, going through somewhere in Canada makes absolute sense. It's just that, I don't think there's been there hasn't been as many illegals that have gone via the northern border. And for those walking, how are you going to get there from Central America and South America? You're not, right? So you got to take some kind of flight into Canada, get there somehow. And the logistics are wildly, wildly different. So that's why I think you see a different makeup entirely of who's going through the Canadian-United States border. But you're going to see more and more numbers through the northern border relatively to the southern border, just because there's been such an emphasis on the southern border. Meanwhile, I think more and more people are aware that the northern border is an option. So if you can get through that whole Canadian deal, when I go through the northern border into Canada, which I haven't done for a number of years, but man, they kind of put you through the ringer. It's not like Mexico, right? They ask you a bunch of questions. They try and trick you up. I remember going through the border one time, and I was up there for my son's baseball tournament. We were in a Soyu in somewhere in Okanagan territory up in Canada. So go east of the mountains here in Washington, go about 3/4 of the way across the state, and then go due north for a couple of hours. And you're way out in the dingles out in Canada. But I remember the border agent just kind of being a dick. And he was like, all right, what are you guys bringing back from Canada? And I've got this tiny baseball bat that my kid won as MVP of whatever. And he was like, nah, you got more than that. I know you've got more than that. And I'm like thinking to myself, do I have more? All of a sudden you get kind of scared and you become a kid again. You're like, I'm going to get in trouble. This is going to be terrible. But I remember, going through the Canadian border, and they'll search your car. They'll do all kinds of stuff. and, going to and from. And from that standpoint, way different than the southern border. But you're talking about a legal crossing versus a legal crossing, and those are wildly different. Here, you're just talking about getting through into the U.S., and then you get into a cab and you pay somebody $150 a person and they drive you 5 hours. I mean, this whole thing is just so convoluted. I mean, it's astounding that this is where we sit with immigration. And there's been such a vortex of pull into the United States. Pull. And that's what Kamala Harris was supposed to be figuring out. The push factors, which is what's pushing people into the United States from Venezuela. So let's see. No, it was Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Those are the three triangle countries. I think Northern Triangle countries, they call them. She was supposed to figure that out. She didn't do jack. She did nothing, right? Just, I'm Kamala Harris. I'm the border czar. No, I'm not. Now I'm, candidate for president. Just absolutely astounding that that's where we sit, that the Democrats actually think that Kamala Harris would be a viable contender for president. Okay. All right. If that's the best you got, then let's see. But this whole notion of push versus pull, we've had so much in the way of pull. Why people come here? Because we're giving out all kinds of stuff. And when you have a situation where you just got cabs lined up, I mean, I'm a hard no-go on all of this stuff. It shouldn't be going like this. But because of the way the last 3.5 years have gone, this is exactly where we sit. And we need something to change. Make that vote count in November, right? Make that vote count. I don't care what you say. Current administration has just been horrific on border policy. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you on the next one. All right. Thanks again. Bye for now.